Good morning, everyone. My name is David Nelson. I'm the Director of Public Policy here at the California Asian Pacific Chamber of Commerce, and it is really a treat to welcome you to this morning's listening tour with Assemblymember Cottie Petrie-Norris. We're very excited to offer this opportunity to interact with her. And for those of you of which this is your first time, we do these listening tours 4 to 5 times a year with different members of the legislature. Typically, before COVID, we would do it in district. And hopefully starting next year, we'll be able to go back to that format. But in the meantime, we are virtual. We really appreciate your participation today. And I know that the Assemblywoman is very much looking forward to an active dialogue with all of you. We got some really great questions in advance of today. So please, you can either, if you think of a question throughout this next hour, you can put it in the chat. I'll also be opening it up to ask a question as well. So just keep something in mind, and we'd love to hear from you. I would like to especially thank our sponsors, Pharma, T-Mobile, and Wells Fargo. Without their support, it would be we wouldn't be able to host these listening tours throughout the year. And today we are pleased to have someone from Department of Public Health and External Relations, and that is Willie Rudman, who will be sharing some really valuable and important information from the governor's COVID-19 vaccine task force. So we really, Willie is tasked with business outreach. And so it's a pleasure to have him here today. Please join me in welcoming him and his presentation.
Thanks so much, David. I appreciate it. And thanks for the Chamber for having me, and for the Assembly member as well. We're pleased to be here, and really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all today and give you a bit of an update on the work that we've been doing through the Vaccinate All 58 campaign, the status of various things. There's been a lot of moving pieces the last several weeks, probably, as you're following the news. So I think it's a great time to be just providing a quick update. So really quickly, and wanted to just give everybody a peek of where we are from a numbers standpoint. So we did cross the 52 million dose landmark just recently. So nearly 73% of folks 12 and older are now fully vaccinated across the state. So, obviously really proud of the progress that we've made. Still a lot longer to go, but over 80% of those people are at least partially vaccinated as well. So we're really encouraged by those numbers. Since the booster doses have been authorized over the past several weeks for the various brands, we've already administered over 2 million. So we're seeing really good uptake there, and obviously wanting to continue that progress. And we're back up to averaging over 90,000 doses administered per day, inclusive of booster doses as well. So we're encouraged to see that number sort of holding steady as we move through the fall months. On the next slide, this is a bit of an eye chart, but I did want to kind of just illustrate, as I mentioned, as booster doses have been approved now fully across all 3 brands, to just give a bit of a snapshot of who is eligible at which age groups and for which particular situations, whether it's your work setting, your living setting, underlying medical conditions, what have you. It can be a little bit complicating to sort through all these. So we wanted to just give folks a summary, and these slides will be sent around afterwards as well. So you'll be able to refer back to this and check to see which categories you fall into and which of you may be eligible. So we encourage everybody to take a look at this and make sure that if you are eligible for a booster shot, obviously you go out and get that as soon as possible. On the next slide, what you didn't see on the previous slide is it started at age 12. So obviously at the federal level, they're going through the reviews and approval processes for ages 5 to 11 this week and next week. So super exciting. We are getting close to that 5 to 11 age group for Pfizer. And as the governor announced yesterday and Secretary Galley, we're hopefully looking at by the end of next week, children 5 through 11 will be eligible to get their first shots. So really exciting news, good progress to be made. And for future ages under 5, we're hoping for winter months, potentially early next year. That's the next group that's going to be up. So just wanted to give a quick overview on this from this vantage point as well. And then I did want to highlight just a few quick resources we have for employers for our campaign. I've linked here some great FAQs and resources from the Department of Fair Employment and Housing, as well as CalOSha, as far as what employees and employers are, what rights they have as it relates to vaccines, as it relates to testing and masking. There's a lot of really great information here on the emergency temporary standards that CalOSHA has still in place. And so I won't go through all the details here, but the links are at the bottom for you to reference on your own time. And a final thing I wanted to highlight is the California Department of Public Health. We are still supporting workplace vaccination requests in certain instances when we're looking at potentially being able to reach closer to 100 employees per day. So if this ever fits a need that is in your community or for your business, and you want to submit a request to have an actual clinic come to your workplace to vaccinate employees and family members, this resource is available through the Department of Public Health, and that's linked here as well. So with that, I just wanted to wrap up and say thank you. My email is also included here on this last slide. So if there are any questions, feel free to reach out. If there are also any questions as it relates to this material during the course of the session, I will certainly drop any resources or links into the chat as well. So I'll go ahead and hand it back over to David. Thanks so much.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Willie. Really appreciate that. And if possible, thank you for staying on. And because I know we did get some pre-questions from registrants regarding COVID-19 assistance for business owners. So be great if you could stay on, but in any event, we will be sure to share your contact information. So now it really is my pleasure and honor to introduce our very special guest today, Assemblywoman Cottie Petrie-Norris. I had the pleasure of first meeting the Assembly member in one of our committee hearings. The Chamber co-sponsored Assembly Bill 915, feels like last year, but it was actually this year. And my first interaction with the member was actually her co-sponsor, signing on to co-author during one of the hearings, our bill. And since then, it's been a pleasure working with her and her staff to not only around our bill, but really most importantly, to see her focus and prioritization of small business owners. Assemblywoman Cottie Petrie-Norris represents California's 74th Assembly District, which includes Costa Mesa, Laguna Beach, Laguna Woods, Newport Beach, and portions of Irvine and Huntington Beach. And so I'm very disappointed that we are not in district today to host this event. She is a businesswoman and community leader who was elected to the state assembly in 2018. In her first term, Cottie secured millions of dollars in funding for projects in her district and introduced important legislation to combat sea level rise, improve services for veterans, and help small businesses. She serves as the chair of the Assembly's Accountability and Administrative Review Committee, as well as chair of the Select Committee on Small Business and Entrepreneurship. I will also note that I believe she was just appointed chair of the Select Committee to address the oil spill off of the coast of Southern California as well. She may touch on that. I know that has been a very devastating event down in that area. So, and she also serves on Banking and Finance, Revenue and Taxation, as well as the Jobs, Economic Development, and the Economy and Veterans Affairs Committees, respectively, in the State Assembly. She's got a very full plate. We sincerely appreciate the time that she has made to join us today. And without any further ado, my pleasure to hand it over to Assemblywoman Cottie Petrie-Norris.
Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you so much, David. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with everyone this morning. As David said, I'm Assemblymember Cottie Petrie-Norris, and I represent the 74th Assembly District. And yes, David, next year, we'll do it here in the district, but it's Zoom, I guess, is our new way of life, and certainly the next best thing. As David said in his opening remarks, I was elected to the Assembly in 2018, so I'm approaching my 3-year anniversary, and this is my first foray into the public sector. I spent my career, a 20-year career, working in finance and technology. I worked for large Fortune 500 financial services companies. I was a small business owner myself. I was involved in a couple of technology startups. And so I didn't come to this role as a political insider or a career politician. And I guess as I approach my 3-year anniversary, I continue to come at this work as a businesswoman, as a mom. I've got two great boys who are 12 and 14, and really as a representative of my community. And I think that that has been a valuable perspective for me in the Assembly. I have been working on legislation and policy to protect the California coast, to fully fund our public schools, to forge an economic recovery as we emerge from this pandemic, and to build a California economy where we can all succeed. And so this morning, before we open it up for questions and conversation, I just want to take a few minutes to walk through a couple of things. So one is kind of a high level, I guess, 30,000 foot update on the state of the state, I suppose. Second, a brief update on some of the initiatives that I've been working on. And three, a particular focus on the work we've been doing with our select committee on small business. And Lizzie, I think you've got some slides or something that you can show. Just have a couple of slides I'll refer to. So I guess starting with the 30,000 foot view, as I'm sure everyone on this call knows, a big focus of our 2021 legislative year was the budget. California had an unprecedented budget surplus, a $75 billion budget surplus. And as we emerge from the COVID-19 crisis and work to forge our comeback, our California comeback, we have really been blessed with an unprecedented level of resources to tackle some of California's seemingly most intractable challenges. And we are making historic investments. Again, I'm sure you've seen the headlines. We are making historic investments across a huge range of priorities. In education, we are investing in education from cradle to career, expanding childcare access and increasing funding for early childhood education, rolling out universal pre-K all across the state. We're also expanding slots for UCs and CSUs to open more doors of opportunity for more of our California kids. On housing and homelessness, I know I don't need to tell you or anyone else that the pandemic has only served to further exacerbate California's already pressing and an urgent homelessness crisis. We're investing $12 billion to combat this crisis, and locally in the district, I in my first 3 years have effectively advocated for additional funding for supporting housing homeless veterans and for supporting mental health services here in Orange County. We're also investing in broadband infrastructure. Again, here's another area where the pandemic, I think, both laid bare and exacerbated some fundamental inequities across our state. And we're investing $6 billion to deliver universal broadband for all Californians and to close the digital divide. We're also investing $15 billion in climate resilience. Sometimes feels like we're all living through a disaster movie. We're battling raging wildfires, severe droughts, 100-year floods. The climate crisis is right here and right now for California. And in addition to the really hard work and focus that we have in the legislature to ensure that we are meeting California's climate goals, we've also got to invest to build climate resilience and to safeguard California from the threat of sea level rise, to shore up our water infrastructure, and to better prepare our state to prevent and to respond to wildfire threats. I think I might have a next slide. So since I was elected, I just want to dive in a little bit to the climate resilience piece and environmental protection. Since I was elected, coastal protection has been one of my top areas of focus. I've authored legislation to invest in programs and initiatives to protect our coast from sea level rise. I've authored legislation this year to, we call it cut green tape, big on cutting red tape, also to cut green tape and make it easier for us to get climate restoration and habitat restoration projects done here along our coast. As David mentioned, I am also now have been appointed to chair the Assembly Select Committee on the Orange County oil spill. So I think next slide, a bit of an update on that. I guess it was a little over 3 weeks ago on October 1st, a offshore platform off the coast here of Huntington Beach began to spew thousands of gallons of ocean into our Orange County waters. The impact of the oil spill has and will continue to be devastating for our oceans, for our environment, for our community, and also for our local small businesses. And I am chairing the select committee on the Orange County oil spill with a couple of objectives in mind. Number one is first and foremost, to get to the bottom of this disaster. There are a lot of unanswered questions and a lot of investigation that still needs to take place to understand who knew what when. We also need to ensure that we hold the responsible party fully accountable for all of the costs of this spill, including cleanup, remediation, and the economic impact that it's had on our community and local businesses. And lastly, but certainly most important, the goal for this spill, might have Lizzie another slide that's relevant. The goal for this select committee is to ensure that we learn from this disaster, that we make the changes in California regulations, protocols, and laws to ensure that a disaster like this does not occur again on our watch. And one thing I do want to flag for folks on this call is the resources that are available for small businesses who have been impacted by the Orange County oil spill. The bottom line is that the responsible party, that the operator of this platform, a company called Beta Offshore, which is a subsidiary of a Houston energy company, Amplify Energy, they are fully responsible for all damages and losses. And that includes the economic losses that our local small businesses have and potentially will continue to experience. In addition to that commitment, the SBA I think it was just yesterday, the SBA declared an emergency disaster designation related to the oil spill. And we want to ensure that we are working with our local small business community to connect impacted businesses with the resources that are available. So we would love to have your help in getting the word out about these programs. And we're hosting a series of clinics in each of the 3 cities that I represent that have been impacted. So we've got clinics coming up in Newport Beach, Laguna Beach, and Huntington Beach next week. And the week after, we're partnering with our local SBDC on these. We'll have consultants at these clinics who will be providing free one-on-one consulting for impacted businesses. And so urge anyone who may have been impacted to join us for that. Okay, next slide. Let's see. Okay, so switching trains of thought from the work that we have been doing on the oil spill to another area that is a big priority for me, and that is my role as chair of the Assembly's Accountability and Oversight Committee. So one of the observations that I had shortly after I was elected to the Assembly was that we really do in the legislature, we spend precious little time on oversight, precious little time on accountability. We write a lot of laws, we pass a lot of bills, we have a lot of press conferences, but we do not, in my view, do a good enough job of looking back and saying, hey, did that get implemented? Is that program working the way that I thought it was going to work? Are those dollars being directed the way that it was intended? And most importantly, are those dollars having the impact that we thought they were going to have? And so that has been an area of focus for me. I have been chairing the Accountability and Administrative Review Committee since I was first elected to the legislature. And I think that the role of accountability and oversight is particularly important right now in a world where we have a $100 billion, $74 billion budget surplus. We are rolling out historic number of new programs, and new programs are incredibly exciting. As I said, these new programs, all this money gives us an opportunity really to tackle some of California's toughest challenges. But we've also got to make sure, I think, that we're doing two things. Number one, as we're standing up these sexy new programs and initiatives, we've got to get the basics right. And I think that throughout the pandemic, we saw too many examples of where we failed to deliver for Californians. And certainly the most high profile example of those failings was the EDD, California's Employment Development Department. And my accountability committee, alongside with the partnership of the chair of JLAC and the chair of our budget sub-4 committee, we've been really, really focused on raising standards at EDD and ensuring that we improve customer service, that we get people the benefits that they deserve, that we implement robust protections to prevent and mitigate fraud, and that fundamentally we ensure that our social safety net is working for Californians in their time of greatest need. And so that kind of emphasis on getting the basics right is a continued area of focus for me, as is ensuring that we have robust oversight and accountability for this host of new programs that we're standing up. I think as business owners, as business people, I know you know that more money doesn't always mean more results. And we've got to make sure that as we're standing up these new programs and initiatives, that we're building in accountability measures upfront. So I think sometimes what we do in government and in the legislature is roll out programs, throw billions of dollars at something, and then 5 years later, look back and go, oh God, that didn't work. Like, we've just wasted billions and billions of dollars. And so I am working with the policy chairs for relevant committees right now to ensure that before these programs roll out, before these dollars roll out the door, we understand where they're headed, and we've got measures of success, both for how we're standing up the programs, how we're getting them implemented, and also how we're defining the success of those programs. So that is going to continue certainly to be a huge area of work for me and for my team as we look at the year ahead, and as we actually look at a year where we might be working with another substantial budget surplus for the state. Let's see. Okay, next slide. And okay, lastly, I want to share the work that I've been doing as chair of the Assembly's committee on, or the Select Committee on Small Business and Entrepreneurship. And Lizzie Kutsona, who is one of my legislative aides, she's on the phone with me now. She has been my lead staffer in pulling together the work that we're doing on this Select Committee. I'm showing you a slide that I'm sure everyone has seen. COVID-19 really did represent an unprecedented challenge, and for businesses large and small all across the state. But the impact was particularly devastating for our small business owners. We've seen thousands of businesses close their doors forever. Even now, as we emerge from this pandemic, as we begin to build a recovery, thousands more are teetering on the brink. And from the early days, you can put on the next slide. From the early days of the COVID-19 crisis, stabilizing California small businesses was one of my top areas of focus. It was about a year ago that I began to work to advocate and to champion direct relief grants for California small business. That resulted in early budget action last January, and then additional action in the June budget. And we were able to deliver $4.4 in COVID-19 small business relief grants for small businesses and nonprofits. As I'm sure you know, those were rolled out across a series of 9 rounds, and the final round of that funding closed on Thursday, September 30th. I don't think we've got the numbers here of the numbers of businesses that we were able to support in the state. But I know just even in the 74th Assembly District, we're able to deliver millions and millions of dollars to thousands of impacted businesses. And I do believe that the COVID-19 small business relief grants really did offer a critical lifeline to impacted businesses. But I think we all recognize that lifeline, that capital, is really just a piece of the puzzle. And as you know as well or better than I do, California businesses face a myriad of challenges that have been both that certainly preceded the pandemic, but have been exacerbated by it. And go to the next slide. So this session, I have been chairing a select committee on small business and entrepreneurship, and we've had 3 hearings so far. And our hearings are bringing together legislators, small business owners, industry advocates, local chambers, and our economic development partners across the state. My goal with the select committee is twofold. So number one, to elevate the voices of our small business community in Sacramento and in our state policymaking. As I've shared with David, I've met multiple times, I really have been struck in my years in the legislature by how absent the voice of small business tends to be. In a lot of the discussion, a lot of the policymaking, a lot of the fights that happen in Sacramento, it becomes this fight between these big multinational corporations and California workers. And that fight is, that's a false fight. It's a false choice. And it ignores the fact that the vast majority of California's small businesses, and what is it, 99.8% of California's workers work for California small businesses. And so number one, I want to make sure that we're elevating the voice of small businesses in our policymaking. And number two, I want to develop policy proposals and policy solutions to address the really critical challenges facing our California small business community today. And that includes access to capital, labor shortages, the digital divide, regulatory hurdles, and the looming burden of our unemployment insurance debt. And I want to, both on this call, but also as we move forward, I really want to hear from you. I want to hear from our chambers all across the state, our business leaders and community all across the state, in terms of what are your biggest challenges that are facing you and your business community right now. What issues are top of mind that you want us to address? And what are some specific proposals that would help move the needle for California small business? I guess next slide. Oh, there we are. Yes, so we're here to help. And this is how you can reach us. Looking forward to a conversation here, but please do not hesitate to reach out to Lizzie, who I'm sure will share her contact information in the chat, or to me. We want to be engaged with your community so that we can develop real solutions. And as we emerge from the COVID-19 crisis and put the sort of nightmare of this pandemic behind us, we are beginning to build back. I do believe that the Biden Build Back Better slogan isn't just a slogan. I really do believe that we have an opportunity right now here in California to build back our communities and to build back our state stronger than before. But as we all know, there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and achieving that vision of Build Back Better, that does not happen by accident. And we need everyone to be working in partnership at the federal, state, local government level, but also with organizations and business leaders like you all across the state. So I want to say thank you for your leadership and for everything that you do to support California businesses. And with that, really looking forward to questions, conversation, and hearing from you, like I said, about what is top of mind for you and the small businesses that you represent.
Well, thank you so much for that, Assembly Member. It's really, that was a very, very, probably one of the most informative PowerPoints we've had from a legislator in one of these settings, and it provided a lot of context, and it dovetails with a number of the questions that we received before in advance of today. I'm going to ask a couple of them, but if in the meantime, if any of you do have any questions that are off top of mind, excuse me, please do enter them into the chat, and we will get to them. I wanted to touch on, well, first of all, I appreciate your acknowledgement of the, frankly, the responsibility of the legislature to review and to look back and to hold itself accountable to the government that it's implemented. You could probably spend an entire session just focused on that and going through cleanup.
Well, so it's funny you should say that, David, because I've talked with some legislators who share my view, which is that, like, if we've got 2-year sessions, honestly, instead of everything just churning out new laws, new rules, and always being a bill factory, if I had my way, we would do oversight, accountability, study, program implementation for 1 year, and then use that as the foundation for developing new policy proposals for year 2. I'm not sure that vision is going to get traction, but I really think that we'd be better off if we did. If we did. And I think sometimes, sometimes we sort of live in a world where it's easy to be very focused on, kind of the press conference and the headline, and then people move on, or the goal setting, right? We do things like say, okay, we are lowering, and we're lowering emissions by 100% by 2035. Okay, job done, and like pat ourselves on the back, as opposed to go, okay, wait, like setting the goal and writing the check, like that's the easy part.
Yeah,
it's like the
very, very different.
Doing the work and the implementing is the hard stuff.
Well, so speaking of writing the check, this question I'm going to ask I'm asking it because it's come up probably almost every Q&A that I have hosted this last year and a half. And it's not by the same person, I can promise you that. The question that was sent in earlier was how, and some of this is after the fact, because as you just mentioned, the last round of COVID business relief funding, grant funding is done and is out the door. But the question is, how and when will California offer direct pandemic assistance to small businesses? Similar to how unemployment benefits just went directly to the end user. I got that question consistently of why businesses already have a contractual relationship with the government through FTB, through Board of Equalization, Department of Tax and Fee Administration, Secretary of State's office. I wonder if in the look back from this last year and a half, if there's a way to, heaven forbid we come across this type of extreme scenario again, but if in any case, what could be done to streamline this assistance directly to business owners?
So that is such a great question. And that's actually a concept that, Lizzie and I were working on, I guess it would have been last year at this time, when we were thinking through models for a proposal around offering assistance to business. And so we did look at the possibility of utilizing existing records to just like we did, like just push money out the door to businesses. And that was actually a model that was used in some other countries. I think most notably the UK. So that's what the UK did. They just said, okay, keep your people on, like the money's coming, and businesses just received their checks. There were, as you might imagine, a number of hurdles that made that not doable for the programs that then got implemented in January, which is why we went with the relief grant framework that we did. But I think that it is important, again, as we learn the lessons of this pandemic, learn the lessons of this disaster, that we ensure we've got, I guess, the infrastructure set up, whether it's our public health infrastructure or our data management infrastructure or anything else that will enable us to more swiftly and more effectively respond. And because I think that, as we all know, when you stand up any kind of of grant program, there's just, it's just makes it so much more difficult, particularly for the hardest hit businesses. The most vulnerable businesses end up being the ones who are least able to navigate the application process and the forms, and even, you know, the knowledge that these programs exist. And it was a really, it was such a huge priority as we were standing up and working with the governor's office and his administration to stand up the COVID-19 relief grant programs. It was a priority for, you know, for me, for the chair of our jobs committee, Chair Cervantes, as well as for the chair of our budget subcommittee, Wendy Carrillo. We tried so hard to do everything we could to ensure that we partnered with groups like yours, with community organizations, so that we were able to get the word out to our smallest businesses, that we were able to support our smallest businesses. But I think we also recognize that there's only so much that we did, and that we want to ensure that we're in a position to do more. God forbid when we're confronted with another crisis.
Right. Well, I know it's it was a frustrating challenge to kind of try to work around, but to the credit of the administration and our statewide partners, you know, as you know, with the TAPE network, Technical Assistance Expansion Program, of which the CalAsian Chamber is an affiliate, you know, we were the boots on the ground and pushing that information out there. What was really surprising to me, I mean, I shouldn't say really, it was very surprising to me in learning from our specialists that were offering this technical assistance, just how many businesses did not have access to the internet. It shocked me. It really shocked me. And it wasn't just an immigrant-owned business. I mean, it was across the board, you know, whether they're primary English speaking or not. It was just very, very shocking to find that there were as many small businesses out there that were not as connected as I think we all think they are. So a lot of work to be done there. In the beginning of your presentation, you referenced your 2021 priorities. What do you see looking into 2022 those priorities will be, and do you see any carryover from this past cycle for yourself?
Yes, certainly. So as we look ahead to 2022, you know, we will continue to be focused on economic recovery, and particularly on small business recovery and the work that we're doing with the Small Business Select Committee. I am going to continue to be very focused on environmental and coastal protection. And you know, as I shared, that took a somewhat unexpected turn with the Orange County oil spill. And I expect that my work as chair of the Select Committee on the Orange County oil spill is going to become a big area of focus and a big place that I and my team spend our time. As I mentioned, one of the key things that we want to do as part of the Select Committee is ensure that we're learning the lessons from this disaster, right, and implementing changes in our processes, protocols, inspections. But bottom line is that the fundamental lesson from this oil spill is really pretty simple and doesn't take a select committee or a bunch of like elected officials to gather together. We know when there's drilling, there's spilling, and the only way that we can really mitigate that risk for just my community, but all of our coastal communities, mitigate that risk for our coastal economy, is to end offshore drilling along the coast. And when you look at that, just frankly, even if I'm talking to a group of folks who don't give a damn about the ocean, don't give a damn about the environment, and most of the people in my district do, even if you just look at it purely from a dollars and cents perspective, right now, those offshore platforms are only generating, it's like 1/3% of California's oil production. So when you compare the economic impact of that with the economic impact of shutting down Orange County's coastal economy, or San Diego or Santa Barbara's coastal economy for weeks or months, the risk is just not worth the benefit and the reward. And so that work is going to be a big area of focus for us next year. And then, third area of priority is and will continue to be my work as chair of the Assembly's Accountability and Administrative Review Committee. And I'd add, I talked a little bit about, making sure that we're looking back and our programs working, and are we ensuring that we're standing up programs in a way that are responsible. And I think for me, though, the importance of oversight and accountability, I think is bigger than that. So clearly, counting the dollars and cents, making sure that we're spending your tax money efficiently and effectively, that is hugely important, hugely. But I think what we need to do is even bigger, because I think we're living in this moment where people's faith in our government, kind of people's trust in our institutions, are at something of an all-time low. And I think every time you read an article about the billions of dollars that we squandered on EDD fraud, every time somebody reads, a headline about the undeserving multinational corporation that got PPP money when their local small business had to go under, right? And people lost their jobs. That just makes people lose faith in our government and in our institutions even further. So for me, there's kind of this powerful, moral imperative as well around the work that we're doing on accountability and oversight.
Yeah, I totally commiserate with you on that. And I remember working in the legislature a while back and hearing the legislators at that time say it's the most thankless job they've ever had. And I can only imagine that's exasperated to now, because for members like yourself that truly are, in it to win it for their district, it's a tough hill to climb right now with our current state of affairs. I have a COVID business regulation question that came through. How do we get businesses on the road to recovery, and how do we move away from or find a right balance of ensuring public health while not continuing over regulation that stifles business? Now, there's nothing specific in here, but what comes to mind is, vaccine and mask mandate, so to speak, police, turning the business owners into that frontline defense. Considering the exasperated challenges that businesses already face, I know that's a very, very contentious issue for business owners. So what is, and of course we've seen the headlines of regarding In-N-Out. That's probably the highest, profile of a business, in this case, not a small business, saying, we're not going to do that. But I know that is reflective of many small business owners that don't have, some are afraid to speak up because they're afraid of being labeled, as an anti-vaxxer or whatever, whereas that's just not the case. They're just trying to get through and keep their business open. So, to that question, how do we balance health and keeping businesses open and that regulation environment? What do you say to that?
So I think all throughout the pandemic, I think it's become really clear that you can't separate public health and economic prosperity, right? So it's not like we're making a choice. We've never been in a position of we're either going to choose to protect the public or choose to ensure that our businesses can flourish. If people don't feel safe, if we continue to be in a public health crisis, there's no way the economy is going to recover, right? And so we have to find a way for those things to go hand in hand. I think the vaccine mandate is, I think, one of the most vexing questions facing us right now, because I'll tell you, and I'm so interested in hearing from you and from your members and the folks that are on the call or not, because I'll tell you, I'm hearing different things from business owners. On the one hand, people do say, oh my God, you're going to try to get me to have the 16-year-old kid be the one who has to check somebody's vaccine card before they're allowed to come in and buy a coffee? What? That's crazy. Then I also hear from folks who say, you know what? We need a statewide mandate because that's the thing that's going to actually advance us into the next phase of recovery. And B, if we have a statewide mandate, then I'm not the bad guy. And it's not like people will leave, like, they're not going to leave my coffee shop to go work for another if everybody has a level playing field. And so those are very much the conversations that we've been having, I would say, in the legislature and with the governor's office, is how do we thread the needle on that in a way that is both going to promote public health, but also, to your point, not put an unreasonable burden, particularly on our smallest businesses. So I am really interested in hearing from your folks. And also, I continually check in with my local businesses because I want to make sure that what I'm advocating for reflects the community that I represent. And I'm not sure exactly what the right answer is right now, but I do know that the only way for us to actually recover, the only way for us to emerge from this and be able to put kind of the emergency response, like public health crisis, behind us, is to continue to raise our vaccination rates. And I think some kind of a mandate is going to be needed to actually make that happen.
Yeah, I hear you on that. And it's I think what makes it much more challenging for us in California is just our sheer size. We are such a broad, diverse, frankly, small nation, that it's how do we all get on board to make sure that happens, and then to make sure it's enforced appropriately. So I'm sure that we'll be noodling on that for a while to come. I have one last question. I'm going to pop out because Janice sent it to me in text, and it was a question that came through. What are the Assembly members' initiatives to bring technical jobs to the district and Orange County? Cost of living and goods has increased significantly, but most salaries do not scale accordingly. Would love to hear and see changes in the near term to address higher paying, high road, so to speak, jobs in your district.
And thank
and
you
with
so
that,
much.
that will be the last question,
Okay.
and then you can have it from there.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much for that question. And it has been an area that I'm very interested in, passionate about, and think that there's huge opportunity. As if you're an Orange County resident, we are a burgeoning technology and innovation hub, and I think that there's a real opportunity for us to supercharge that. And I think when you look at not just Orange County, but when you look at California's job growth, so when we saw what was happening even pre-pandemic, we were seeing job growth slow, and it was not because companies weren't hiring. It wasn't because jobs weren't available. It was increasingly because the skills and the training that is demanded in our 21st century technology-driven economy is out of whack with the skills and training of our labor force. And I think that there is a huge need for us to really invest in workforce development programs across the state. And I've been working to bring those workforce development dollars here to California. I'm not going to have the number off the top of my head, but when we look at the amount of money that we are spending statewide in our employment training panel, for example, and the employment training panel, folks may know, is a partnership between manufacturers and state dollars to do on-the-job training for very highly skilled, highly trained manufacturing jobs. Lizzie, you may know or be able to find it out. I mean, we're talking about, it's like a couple $100 million for the entire state. And so I've been really advocating for additional funding for that program specifically, and for other workforce development programs across the state. We work really closely with our partners in the building trades, and I think their model of apprenticeship is one that we need to deploy in more industries and in our kind of technology and research and development spaces. So I think it was last year, we had started a conversation with some of our local folks in the life sciences sector. So Orange County, in my district, it's another place, we are burgeoning life sciences hub. And these are really, really, really good jobs. A lot of them do not require college degrees, and they pay very, very well. And they can't hire enough people. So we want to work with specifically the life sciences sector on developing an apprenticeship program that is modeled off of what we've seen in some of the building trade sectors. But again, I feel like this is an area where it is both a daunting challenge, because the reality is if companies can't find the workforce that they need in Orange County, in California, they're going to increasingly go other places. But it's also a huge opportunity because there are good jobs available. We need to help people connect the dots. We need to help people transition from the low skilled, low paying jobs that are increasingly getting displaced by the forces of automation and technology. There's an opportunity for us to provide those bridges and transition people into higher paid and hybrid jobs. So it's an area that we're working on and an area that we'll continue to focus on.
Perfect. Well, with that, we are running close to your time. So I really appreciate everything that you've shared today and your commitment to small business and your partnership with the Chamber. I'll give you the last, the closing thoughts, and then I'll wrap it up.
All right. Well, thank you again, David, for having me, and thank you for everything that you do. I've really enjoyed working with you. And let's figure out, I think we've already talked about, we need to reintroduce, I forget, is it 915 is the bill we're going to need to reintroduce next year? That's the number, right? Yeah. So we're going to need to reintroduce that one, and hope we can build a winning coalition this time to push that over the line. But to everyone on the call who's joined us, I just want to reiterate, I guess, my request for input and for ideas. You are each and every day on the front lines of building a better California, and of building a strong state and building a robust recovery. And I really look forward to continuing to work with you and to partner as we move forward to support and reinvigorate California's small businesses. I believe in my heart that California's businesses are not just, they're the heart and soul of our economy, and they're the heart and soul of so many of our communities. And so anything that I can do to ensure that our small businesses are able to emerge from this recovery strong and able to prosper is going to continue to be something that I work on for my time in the legislature. So look forward to doing that work with you. And thank you so much again for having me today.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Assembly Member. Really appreciate your time today. Special thanks to Lizzie. She's a treat to work with from a staff level. And for all of you that joined us, the Assemblywoman's office really is that accessible. So please do not hesitate to reach out to her or to her staff. Of course, you know how to get a hold of us. We're happy to help liaise any questions or comments that you might have. And yes, we are going to go back again for Assembly Bill 915 in some version or fashion, and we're not gonna let up on that. I also appreciate Willie Rudman from the Governor's Task Force on COVID-19, and appreciate his information and what he provided today. And then, of course, to our sponsors, Pharma, T-Mobile, and Wells Fargo for sponsoring the entire listening tour series. Before you know it, it's going to be January, and we're going to be back at it. But we really look forward to representing all of you and the interests of small business, especially minority small business owners. And we couldn't have a better friend and partner in the legislature than Assemblymember Cottie Petrie-Norris. So thank you, Assemblymember, and thank you all for joining us today, and have a great rest of your day.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye, David.